So, if constructive creativity has to be attuned to reality, that means the mind should stop distorting reality. We should bridge the gap between the way things appear and the way things are. That means, in a way, the mind has to remain in its natural state, and sort of perturbed state. So I think, Echart, maybe you could tell us a few things of how creativity could arise from a mind that is not completely distorted by mental constructions.
We started off by talking about the genesis of rugby, and when I heard that, something just came to mind, a news item that I listened to a few days ago on my and His Holiness's favorite news channel, which is the BBC World News, that I listen to every day, and I believe you also listen to that. There was a news item on the BBC about soccer, football, soccer is the name. And researchers had looked at a phenomenon in soccer that is called, I believe, the penalty shootout. So I haven't watched a soccer game in about 20 years, so I only have a vague recollection of what that means. It's often the decisive moment in a game when one player is selected to try to kick this ball into the goal, and there must be better expressions for it, to score. And there's an enormous pressure at that moment on this player. Everything depends on it. His whole nation sometimes is watching. And so it's of incredible importance, not on a cosmic scale, but on a relative scale. And so researchers examined what happens when the referee whistles, and then that is a signal for the player to shoot. And those players who do not pause, who immediately shoot after they hear the whistle, are much less likely to score than those players who, when the whistle goes, they don't immediately shoot. There's a 3, 4, 5 seconds, or even more, when they become still. And then it happens, and the likelihood of scoring is infinitely greater than those players who do not stop. And so this, when you ask for an explanation, well, people will give some kind of mental, verbal explanation, say, well, they concentrate, that gives them a moment of concentration. But what does that mean when we say they concentrate for a moment? The question I'd like to ask is, what happens in that moment of going within? So the attention, which is usually would be on the desired outcome, and the pressure, the attention on the self, me, I have to perform, that the attention is taken away from all that, and there is a redirecting of attention into the depths. And so at that moment, I believe, because I'm familiar with that process, I believe it is the basis of the creative process, and it's in football, in soccer, it is a rudimentary expression of the creative process. A redirecting of attention within, where you touch a deeper layer, a deeper level of your being, and that is where all power resides. And when you touch that power, at that moment, all conceptual things, including the concept of me, conceptual self, goes. There's simply a deep, intensely alive stillness. And out of that stillness comes the power. And that power is not my power or your power, it is universal power. And that power then can either become a masterful kick of the ball, or it can flow into other channels, and it can be born into form. It could be a mental. I believe that also scientists, after they've done a lot of thinking, as you mentioned, there's a moment of cessation of thinking. And often in that moment of stillness, and stillness is not just the absence of thinking, there is a power in the stillness. There is non-conceptual intelligence in the stillness. Intelligence, when we measure intelligence with IQ tests, all we measure is conceptual intelligence. But there is a much vaster intelligence in every human being that is non-conceptual, not words and concepts. You can't analyze it, but everybody has that within potentially. And I believe that is the source of creativity. Now, this does not mean that when I am asked to kick this ball and score a goal, that I go deeply within and it's going to happen. Now, why doesn't it happen? I've gone deeply within, I've contacted the source of power, and it's not working. Or if they ask me to come up with a great theory of physics, okay, I'm going to become still, and then perhaps the theory of relativity or something, or the unified field theory, or the answer to everything is going to come to me. It's not because I don't know anything about physics. So it can only come, there must be a vehicle that is ready for the power to flow into. The vehicle could be the human mind. There must be something that has already been prepared for that in the world of form. So, and this is why some researchers have found, I read it recently in a book called Outliers, that to achieve proficiency and become masterful at something, one prerequisite is, they called it 10,000 hours of practice.
Okay.
And so 10,000 hours of practice, then the possibility arises that the vehicle is ready to be receptive to the power of creativity.